This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Know-How is brought to you by CashFly.
This episode of Know-How is brought to you by Optical Cables by Corning. Corning's incredibly durable Thunderbolt and USB 3 optical cables are longer, thinner, lighter, and stronger. Go to opticalcablesbycorning.com to learn more. Today on Know-How,
Back to School Networking Edition, Part 1.
welcome to Know-How. It's the Twitch show where we build, bend, break, and upgrade. I am Father Robert Balaser, and I don't know who you are.
Dr. Jacoby from Twin Peaks, as this is our Halloween episode.
Oh, how wonderfully esoteric.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I have
damn
some
good coffee.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Too.
Hot.
Gonna eat all that donut?
Yes. I'm working my way through it, slowly but surely.
Well, folks, as my esteemed colleague has just mentioned, this is our Halloween edition, but it is a little weird. I mean, it's no secret that we pre-recorded a lot, and so this is technically the episode that will be released on Halloween, but today is also technically
Alex's birthday.
And Alex is a big fan of Twin Peaks, so therefore we've got an office full of this.
That's right, and we have Carly Perkins to thank for that. She even put donuts on his desk, stacked them up just like Twin Peaks.
I walked in early this morning and she was trimming wigs. And it was just a very strange scene, very strange scene.
I think she uses it as an excuse now to dress up with different wigs and things like that.
Could be,
people's holidays, birthdays, things like that.
Yeah, and you know what? A good wig is pretty much, it's never out of place.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So she's growing her collection. She's actually let other people wear some of the wigs.
It's getting kind of creepy, actually.
Oh,
like she has a wig for everything.
Yeah, that's true. But I kind of want to wear one.
She has a hit girl wig.
What's a hit girl wig?
From the movie Kick-Ass.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty good. Pretty tight.
Cool.
All right. Well, we're not here to talk about that
You're wearing
until
a wig,
later.
right?
Oh, this is always a wig. This has been a toupee for the last 20 years.
Like you and Shatner.
I'm totally bald on this, 100%. Yeah. No, but we wanted to give you a little something. We did a back-to-school series not too long ago, a month long of some items that we thought would be useful for students going back to the classrooms, the hallowed halls of education. But what about those folks who wanted something specifically for, say, a dorm or to increase their connected experience on a busy, congested network?
Yes. And while it's been a while since I've been in a college dorm, I remember it wasn't that, God, now that I think back to it, it was kind of long ago, but the Wi-Fi was just super congested, and then the Ethernet that they provided wasn't that great either because there's so many blocks on the university firewall and stuff. But we found a way around to be able to play Halo 2 on the Xboxes.
That's what it always comes down to. I needed to play my games, and so I broke the network.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, folks, we wanted to give you some super hackery tools that might be able to do the trick. The first is simple connectivity. Hey, Brian, do you know what this is?
No, it's in a bag.
It is in a Mylar bag. Believe it or not, this used to be, 10 years ago, the future of super high-speed networking.
Really? So is this like a phone cable or something?
Yeah, this is for, hooking up that little pack bell type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
The one with the rotary dial. Let's do that. No, back in the day, if we wanted super high speed, do you have keys or something? If we wanted super high speed connectivity, you needed to go with a 10 gigabit Ethernet adapter. Unfortunately, there were very few things that could pull off 10 gigabit because the signaling was just intense. We ran a bunch of this cable at Interop. And although it was fun to have a super fast network, the issue was the cables were about 4 to 5 times as thick as a standard Category 5E cable.
Oh.
And I mean, you run several hundred to several thousands of those.
Yeah,
it's heavy.
That's a lot of weight.
Really heavy. We had one truck, one full 40-foot semi that was filled with nothing but the Cat 6 or whatever it is. Yeah, the Cat 6E.
Did you have a forklift to get it out?
We did. Actually, I know how to drive a forklift.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of scary.
I'll show you one day. I'm actually not very good at it.
Here's how you do a burnout in a forklift.
So this was a solar flare card. Back in the day, we bought like 10 of these for our setup at Interop. What it has on the side here, this is just a super high speed, if you go to the side view there, a super high speed SFP, which allows me to hook this up to like bottom of rack. This gives me 10 gigabit Ethernet connectivity. So it was really designed for servers, but
nice.
Small problem.
What's that?
That card sold for about $3,000. And that cable sold for about $400.
Oh, wow. But that was a decade ago.
That was a decade ago. And so we've advanced. What if I told you that you could now get 10 gigabit Ethernet for a fraction of that price?
I'd believe you.
Yeah. Now, this by itself isn't going to make your network faster because unless there's a 10 gig switch on the other side, it doesn't do anything.
It doesn't help at all.
I mean, one of the nice things about this, though, is unlike this, I don't have some strange module that's semi-proprietary. So this will only work with these particular SFPs, these particular GBICs.
Right.
Whereas this is the Ethernet that everybody knows and loves. If you look at the side view for this one, Alex, so this is a PCIe connected. Yeah, that's just a standard, RJ45 connector, right?
Yeah, no big deal.
Except this card does 5 different speeds. It will do 100 meg. It will do 1 gig, which is what the standard is right now. 2.5 gig, 5 gig, and 10 gig over copper.
Nice.
Now this I love because I do actually have a couple of economical 10 gig switches in my network plan, and this gives me the ability to have 10 gigabit connectivity without paying a 10 gig price. Because whereas this setup would have cost me close to $6,000.
Yeah, what's this one?
That's about 290 or so.
Oh, okay.
It's still expensive. I mean, for a network card, we don't expect to pay that much. But if you are looking to experiment with super high speed connectivity, that's a good bet. This is the StarTech. Actually, Alex, I think we have a link for this one. It's a decent. You can find cards like this, and these are going to come down increasingly in price. Eventually, these things are going to be under $100. But if you do want to experiment, and I mean, a campus is a great place to experiment because a lot of them do have 10 gig connectivity, this would be the one to do it with.
Okay, all right, good to know.
I also like it because it's so small. Look at that.
And what is it? It's
tiny. It's like a little cardito.
I know. It's the compact version of what that used to be, I guess. Huh?
You will need a computer with an open PCI 4-lane slot.
Right. That's what I was looking at.
Just FYI. You can use it with the half slot if you got just the 1X or the 2X.
Right.
But I mean, you won't get 10 gig.
You won't get 10. And you were saying you have to have copper wiring for 10 gig?
For 10 gig. Not the same stuff we used at Interop.
Yeah.
You can get 10 gig over some lesser cables, but just remember, the longer the length it goes, the more you can't do 10 gig.
That makes sense because it needs the signal starts to degrade. I guess
right. This is really designed for inter-rack. So for going straight from the computer to 3 feet away, there's the switch.
Ah, I see. I see.
I mean, if you wanted longer distance, you'd get fiber because 10 gig, the signaling is so fast. It's too easy for a janky cable just to kill it.
Right.
And suddenly you think you're running at 10 gig, but your really expensive card is actually running at 100 meg.
Oh, then you cry. Well, so you just dropped $280.
Yeah, for no particular reason. All right, so that's network card, but how about a little something for those who, I won't say are mischievous, but who want to know what's going on in the network.
Yeah, totally. I want to know what's going on in my network.
Now, you remember some of my favorite gear has been the net optic taps.
Yes.
Now, we've used them on the show before. The problem is they're expensive. I mean, they go between $800 and $2,000 depending on what kind of capabilities you want. And, I mean, they are kind of big. In fact, we're going to have an episode in just a bit where we're going to be using them again. They're not exactly pocket size.
No, not at all.
What if I told you I could get you a pocket size dedicated hardware network tap that could do 1 gig and yet was less than $300?
I'd like to see it right now.
Well, how about like right now?
Right now.
This is the Shark Tap from Mid-Bit Tech.
Oh.
It doesn't look like much, but this box will do exactly what my $1,000 net optics aggregator tap will do. So what it does is it has 2 sides. I've got cable going in, cable going out. It doesn't matter which direction is which. On one side, you'd have, say, the switch. On the other side, you'd have either the router or another computer or another switch. It will, any of the traffic that passes either way through this box, gets aggregated into that tap. And here's the thing, this will do 1 gig. That's really difficult to do. 100 meg is easy. In fact, I can make a cheap 100 meg tap just by doing what's called a passive tap. So basically, I steal some of the electrons from the wire so that I can figure out what's going on. Problem is you can't do that with 1 gig. So you do need some sort of electronics. This does it with almost no latency.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. And so you have it plugged into a wall through a USB.
Right, so it's USB powered. So I could power this off of the same computer that I'm using to tap the network.
And then this is the tap coming out.
Right, that's the aggregated tap. Now this is important because there are some taps that will do just one direction, and those do have a use. Sometimes you just want to look in one direction. But this is a pocket-sized tap that will do what's called an aggregated tap.
Yeah.
So it will give you the traffic from both direction onto the receive pin, or actually it would be the transmit pin of the tap port, which means your computer that you have connected will get the traffic in both ways.
Okay.
Yeah. One caveat to that, and this is true of all aggregated taps. This is not a flaw. It's just a limitation of the technology, and that is because it's an aggregated tap. You can get 2 gigabits per second on this side and 2 gigabits per second on this side. It's actually 1 and 1 because it's 1 each way, right?
Right.
So that's
that makes
two
sense.
2 gigabits total. This is a 1 gigabit tap. So if you start to go over, say, 60% on both sides at the same time, it will start to drop packets. There's just too many to go through.
For it to grab. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Little hole, big spigot.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to be playing with this in a bit because we've got an episode where I kind of want to bring it back. I looked back through our notes. We haven't done a serious tapping episode in probably like 120 episodes.
Was that back to like Wireshark and stuff?
Yeah,
when we
it
were
was.
doing
It
that?
was a while back. It was.
How much is that
ago.
one again?
It depends. Like you can get the 100 megabit per second version for something like $69.
Oh.
This version is currently sold out on Amazon, but it will be. I think it's available for like 200 some.
Okay.
Or no, it might have been 169. I can't remember.
That's impressive though.
I'm
Do
so
1
confused.
gigabit though.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. When we come back, we're going to be talking a little bit about a router that I think you should get. It's probably one of the coolest devices you're going to be able to install in your dorm room. But before we do that, hey, Brian, you know what I want to do?
What's that?
I want to thank a sponsor.
Yeah, the people that allow us to keep doing these episodes.
Yeah, the people who support us year after year after year, even though we really just get up here and talk about whatever we like.
Whatever we're interested in at the moment.
And what I'm interested in right now is high-speed connectivity that goes over distance.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking about high-speed networks, but a lot of it comes down to the cables that you use.
It comes down to the cable. Specifically, it comes down to the fiber. Now, you may remember back in the day trying to run a really long serial cable, a really long parallel cable, just so you can get your peripherals away from your computer, away from your workspace. Well, that's more difficult to do these days, again, because since we transfer at such high data rates, those cables just don't cut it, which is why we're so happy to have optical cables by Corning. Now, Corning can greatly improve your audio-video workflow with their strong, durable, and far-reaching Thunderbolt and USB 3.0 fiber optic cables. Whether you're into high-end video, photography, audio production, or computing, optical cables by Corning will allow you to build a convenient workspace through a superior long-distance connection. Corning's USB 3.0 and Thunderbolt cables are incredibly strong and flexible. They have exceptional cable runs of up to 60 meters, that's 200 feet for Thunderbolt, and 50 meters, 165 feet for USB 3. Making it so easy to move noisy, space-consuming devices away from your workspace. You can bend or walk on Corning's cables. These things are nearly indestructible. Even if they're tangled, it's no problem. They'll keep transmitting at top speed. Brian, anyone who's ever worked with fiber optic cables knows how rare that is, because normally when you get a kink, you're going to crack it. You're going to shatter the fiber down the line. Not so with Corning cables. Corning cables will help you achieve acoustic and electrical isolation so that you can enjoy a clutter-free, peaceful work environment. That's that setting your peripherals far away from the computer as possible that I talked about. That kind of went away once we went to high-speed USB and Thunderbolt, but now it's back. Now, Universal Audio, which is a company that depends on having acoustic isolation, it's what they do to get the purest sound. They rely on optical cables by Corning to achieve acoustic isolation in their studio where they test new equipment, such as their best-selling Thunderbolt audio interface. In other words, since they have to test how a device sounds, they can't have the testing equipment itself adding sound to that sound floor. That's why they use Corning, and that's why we trust them. Now, instead of investing on multiple extenders, adapters, and cables, you can turn to optical cables by Corning to establish the connection you need with one simple long-length cable. These cables are available at all major electronics and professional AV retailers, including Apple stores, Amazon, B&H, and more. Folks, if you're looking for a way to get acoustic perfection, if you need high speed, even though it's going to be a distance away from your box, you need optical cables by Corning. They're longer, thinner, lighter, and stronger. Go to opticalcablesbycorning.com. That's opticalcablesbycorning.com to learn more. And we thank Corning for their support of know-how. All right, Brian, this has been one of my favorite devices. I know you've got one too.
I've been using that in my house for probably the last 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, this thing, it's it doesn't look like much.
And people, that's kind of what I like about it.
It was like their first entry. So Synology, they're known for their NASs.
Right.
They're known for making really, really good software for the NASs. They were not known for other network devices like routers.
Right. But I've been using it. It's been rock solid for me.
That's really the thing. I love DDWRT. I love OpenWRT. I have that on so many devices in my test network. But when it came down to the network that it just needed to work like all the time.
Exactly.
I wanted something that was a bit more elegant, something that was a bit more configurable, something that I didn't have to worry about constantly updating because it would take care of itself. And because I had such a good experience with the Synology NAS boxes, I thought maybe I should give their new router a try. It is very rare for a company to break out of the equipment that they normally do and do the first product in a new category well, but I think they did that with this.
Yeah, and as far as simplicity is setting up, and it like the base, the foundation of getting it set up is super easy, but then if you want to stack things on top of that with the software that they've included, it's really easy to start installing stuff, turn it into a media server, and the thing that I've enjoyed the most about it is that it's like a plug and play, and I haven't had the calls from my wife being like, the internet's not working, like what's going on? It's just been like 100% uptime.
Well, we're going to go through some tips on how to get this and then configure it for best use inside of your campus network, inside your back-to-school environment. But first, let's go ahead and take a quick look at a review I did extolling the virtues of the Synology RT1900 AC. This is Synology's first foray into routers. Known for their line of network-attached storage products, Synology brings a lot of that same experience and engineering know-how into the RT1900 AC. On the outside, the RT1900 AC looks well designed, if a bit plain. The all-black styling hides most of the goodies, including a dual-core 1 GHz processor, 256 GB of DDR3 memory, 3 beamforming antennas supporting both 2.4 and 5 GHz 802.11a, b, gn, and AC. A single WAN port and 4 LAN ports adorn the back of the unit, while a USB 3.0 port and an SD card reader are housed on the right. The left side of the RT1900 AC sports a button for WPS and a physical switch to turn the wireless features on and off without the need to access the user interface. A quick boot and login reveals Synology's SRM, or Synology Router Management. Users of Synology NASs will immediately recognize the layout, and many of the functions have been duplicated from Disk Station Manager, to the point that being an expert in Synology DSM makes you an expert in SRM. Opening the Network Center reveals a well-organized set of screens and intuitive configurations. The status screen gives you basic real-time throughput, device status, and router resource monitoring. The wireless menu lets you individually configure the 2.4 and 5 GHz bands, as well as letting you create a guest wireless network that gives visitors or unsecured Internet of Things devices restricted access to the Internet without having access to the rest of your network. The Internet menu lets you configure for your ISP settings, while also giving you easy access to port forwarding, DDNS, the DMZ, IPv6 settings, and the 3G, 4G backup connection that runs through your connected USB dongle. An easy way to stay connected should your wired ISP take a bit nap. Parental controls allow parental units or concerned admins to schedule Internet allowed time with a simple menu that lets them set access parameters down to the day and hour and device, while the web filter will keep malware and objectionable material from making it onto your network. For those admins who want a little more control, Synology SRM also allows you to prioritize the traffic from particular devices on the network perfect for mission-critical devices. And it gives you up to a month of recorded traffic stats, letting you sort through the top talkers and applications on your network. These settings and more allow you to easily configure your RT1900AC for router, AP, or client mode, turn on sharing of media connected to the USB port or the SD card reader, set up SMS notifications for network events, self-signed certificates, and dozens of features that most users won't care about, but geeks will love. One of the best features of the SRM operating system is a direct translation from Synology's DSM, the Package Center. The Package Center allows users to install, update, and maintain add-on features on the RT1900AC with minimal training. As of the recording of this review, only 5 packages were available, but as it shares this feature with Synology's NAS boxes, expect that to quickly increase. Download Station allows users to download files via BitTorrent, FTP, NZP, eMule, and a number of protocols directly to a USB-connected storage device, which can then be shared across the network. Media Server adds DLNA and UPnP functionality for streaming media from router-attached storage to TVs, media boxes, and network devices. DNS Server gives you your very own domain name system server, while SMB and enterprise users will appreciate the out-of-the-box Radius support. However, my favorite package has got to be Synology's VPN server. This download gives you the ability to securely connect to your network from a remote location via PPTP, OpenVPN, and L2TP IPsec. In all, the $220 Synology RT1900AC is a rare exception in an otherwise boring field of routers. They've managed to make a router simple enough for the neophyte, powerful enough for the small to medium business, and geek enough for the super user.
You know, the thing that I like about this box is that, as I said in the review, it is a full-feature device. It has all the features that I would expect out of something like pfSense with a command line interface, but it has a beautiful graphical user interface that they've designed from the interface they made for their NAS boxes, which already, I think, are the best in the industry.
Right.
This really is one of these boxes that I can give to my mom. She can plug it in, be up and running in 5 minutes, and then when I come to visit, I can set all the advanced features. I really like that.
Yeah, I think it was super easy because the most important thing for me is setting up my Xbox
Of course,
on my home
naturally,
network. Yeah, and the interface was easy enough for me to just set up the port forwarding right away and set a dedicated IP to my Xbox. Haven't had a single issue with a closed NAT, which was happening continually with my old router. And I like the subdued look to it. It doesn't look like a giant spider sitting on top of my cabinet.
And we're not knocking any other manufacturers who might make giant wireless spiders, but yeah, this one's, it's nice, you know, it's subdued, it's
clean,
nice and black.
simple,
it
works.
actually sits on top of my Synology NAS, so it kind of matches the decor.
Oh, okay. Maybe I should pick up one of those NASs then.
I gave you an IOSafe, remember?
I do, yeah. Actually, that sits underneath my desk.
And by the way, that IOSafe has a USB 3 interface, which would be perfect to plug into this because this does file sharing incredibly well. I mean, that's what Synology is known for.
Right.
So essentially, they've given you the NAS circuitry. You just plug in your USB 3 and you're good to go.
Yeah, no, and the modular software stuff. You just download what you want and then leave it. If you don't need it, don't download it.
I would suggest getting yourself a high-speed SD card, like a 64 gigabyte or 128 gigabyte. Those don't cost that much because it does have that port on the side that allows you to plug in an SD card, and then it becomes sort of system memory. So that's when the version that I have at my house, where I'm running a authentication server on this and VPN, that really does help because that's the memory that it stores it on.
And I had almost forgotten about it, but one of the things I like too is the physical Wi-Fi off-on switch.
They all have that. They all have software switches, but you have to log into the interface. This is no, go over there, click. And it actually is something that I do every day. This sits next to the exit for my lab, next to the NAS and such. So every time I leave, I just hit that button. Network is still working, but no one can get into my network unless they have physical access to one of the ports.
Right, and if somebody has physical access to your ports,
I've got bigger problems.
You're already in trouble, yeah.
Exactly. Now, let's go ahead and dive a little bit deeper because once you pick one of these up, you may want to tweak it. And in fact, this is always good practice. Tweak everything you get. So what I've got here is I've got the interface. This is the SRM 1.1. They have updated it since. I'm going to go ahead and go into the network center. The first thing we want to do is DNS. DNS is always going to be the weak point, especially on something like a campus network. Those internal DNS servers are getting hit so much
that they almost never work at the full speed that they should be working
Right.
at. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into my standard settings, and there's always a place for me to set my DNS servers. Now, right now, this is set to just pick up anything that the DHCP server offers me. If you remember,
Right.
it's a dynamic host control protocol. Essentially, it's a way for a computer to connect into the network and then just say, hey, who's the gateway?
Right.
Oh, and by the way, what settings should I use?
Right, and I think since I'm on Comcast, it's like 75.75.75.75
Right.
for my
so
DNS.
You're getting you're sending a request to the
right.
Comcast server, and your Synology is receiving an IP, but then your computers
Right, the
also
network
get
DNS.
they send a request to your router.
Right.
So if you do use the default, most of the time it's okay.
Yeah.
Comcast especially has gotten much better. I mean, 3 years ago, their DNS servers were the laughing stock of the internet. It was,
Well, there was that giant crash they had
Yeah.
not too long ago.
yeah. But if you want to, I like to use custom DNS servers, specifically Google, which is 8.8.8.8. That one's really easy to remember. But I also like to have a little extra something else. There's 4.2.2.2, which is level 3, and level 3 almost never goes down, so they're good. But I also like to use OpenDNS, and that's 208.67.222.222 or 220.220.
Right. You've got these memorized, huh?
I mean,
The
I'm an
Google
old
one's
internet
easy.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the OpenDNS, it just starts rolling up your tongue. 208.67, 220, 220. Right?
Yeah, they should have a little jingle,
jingle.
shouldn't they? But so OpenDNS, you can also pay for
Yes.
it. Because is that the free DNS?
Oh,
one that you're using?
OpenDNS is free. It's
Okay.
completely free. But you can get, yeah, they always offer premium services for those who actually need to use it.
Is it worth it?
You don't need it.
No,
You
okay.
really don't. You really don't. So yeah, the three I would suggest are Google level 3, so 8.8.8.8, 4.2.2.2, or OpenDNS 208.67.220.220, or 222.222.
Just make it into a little song.
It's
and
a
you'll
little
never
song.
forget
That's,
it. Yeah.
that's how I remember. I sing this to myself.
Okay.
All right. So that's DNS. That one's an easy fix. The other thing that you have to do, unfortunately, this is something that I think Synology should change. WPS is turned on by default.
Oh,
That's the
yeah.
wired protection. It's horrible. I always turn it off, but unfortunately, if you don't turn it off, it will just remain on. And this is the ability to press a button and then be able to sync up with the device.
Right.
It is horribly insecure. Don't leave it on. It's a gaping security hole into your network.
Don't they just all routers just have that for like simple use? Like
They
it's just,
do, but the problem is, I mean, it is comically easy to exploit that.
Yeah.
I can do it on this laptop. It has no specialized software. I can load it up probably in about 2 minutes and break into your WPS router a bit after that.
Okay. Well, it's nice that you can just turn that off then.
Yeah, so just make sure that's off. That's a super easy fix. The other thing that we want to do in wireless is we want to set guest networks. This is actually a fantastic feature of higher end routers, the ability to turn on a guest network. Now, there's the added advantage in the RT1900 AC and a lot of others that have dual band, have multiple radios. So this has one radio in 2.4 gigahertz and one radio in 5.8 gigahertz. And the software is powerful enough to let you use those independently and assign them to different things.
It's pretty cool.
In this particular case, I can enable a guest network on either 5 or 2.4, which is interesting because I could say, okay, you know what? If you're a guest, you get to use 2.4. I get to use 5.8.
Right. Right.
That's because I'm better than you.
Exactly. Although I've found that in my apartment, 2.4 actually has better penetration through some of the walls.
2.4 always has better penetration, but when you have a 5.8 signal that's strong enough, it is much faster.
Okay.
And it doesn't get congested. And
Right,
We'll talk about that in just a bit because
Which in a
got some
dorm
tools.
atmosphere would probably be a lot of other Wi-Fi networks. so-
Precisely. But here's another important thing. Remember, you have friends, right? I mean, I don't, but you have friends.
Yes. Yeah.
And they come over and they go, hey, Brian, what's the Wi-Fi password?
Right. And then they're on my network.
And forever.
they're sucking all my
Because you will
bandwidth.
never change your password because you're like me
true.
and we're lazy.
I've had the same Wi-Fi password for like the last 10 years.
And Monkey123 really isn't that secure, Brian.
No, I really should change that.
really should.
It's the same number on my luggage too.
Oh, but there is a feature inside of this router called AP isolation. That's access point isolation. So if you go back here, right here, if you enable it, What it means is that when someone logs into this guest network that you're creating, they won't be able to see anything else.
Well, that's what the whole guest network should be.
That's
for,
how it should work. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't take the time to set up a proper guest network because it's working, right? And if it's working, why would I have to do any more configuration?
Right.
But you always have to consider what happens when you have your friends over. And again, I don't have this problem because I have no friends. But
if you did,
you did. And the awesome thing about this, is I can set it to expire.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So I can say, hey, you know what? Turn this on. Yeah. But yeah, that password's going to work for 3 hours. Then it's going to turn off.
You know, that's even better if you have neighbors that come over and ask for your Wi-Fi password.
You can frustrate them.
Right? Because then they think, oh, well, when I leave, I'll still be able to connect to this network.
Nope. And then the API isolation is important because it essentially puts each device on its own network. So they have visibility of the internet. They can access the internet, but they can't see the router. They can't see anything you've connected to the router. They can't see any of the devices on your network. That is actually very, very important.
I like that a lot. Yeah. Cool.
The other thing is because this allows VLANs off of the 4 ports, the LAN ports it has, you can actually do the same thing with the cable. So you can have like the different ports access different parts of the network. You can say like port 1 can access the USB drive. None of the other ports can. And I know, okay, my computer's always connected to port 1.
Man, I love how sophisticated the features can get on this.
Yeah, I mean, they really jazz it up a little bit. All right, so a few of the other things you're going to do, this is super important, even though it seems really silly. It's something I think is very important for people who are going to be living with their network devices. I mean, if you're living in a dorm or residence hall, whatever they're calling it, you probably don't have a lot of space. You probably don't have a separate room for your network equipment.
No.
We know that the lights on gear does affect the way we sleep.
Oh, I do like this. Yeah. I use this.
Yeah. So if you go to administration, you have the ability, I'm not going to save that. You have the ability, if you go to LED, to set when the lights are on.
Right. You can do specific hours, specific days. It's pretty granular as far as LED control.
Precisely. It's like, for example, I could say, you know what? Only during the meat of the day is when I want to set them up. So I'm gonna say from here to here. That's when I want my lights on. So, and honestly, that's the time when I'm probably gonna look at it. But during the night, I never want flashing lights, especially flashing lights, because that really draws the eye. And there's blue light in here, which is like the worst for you. Blue light really messes up your sleep.
Wakes you up,
And it seems like a small feature, but more and more router manufacturers are putting that in because they realize that's important.
It is because, you know, like you were saying, in a dorm you have a confined space, and in my apartment, the way it works is, so you walk in, the router's right here, and then my bedroom's directly across. And there's a door, but it's a glass door with like a frosted kind of thing in between. So the lights aren't very bright, but they're bright enough that they kind of cast like a green glow onto the door. So having the ability to like turn off the lights has made it way better falling asleep. Yeah,
exactly. The last little bit that I think you should tweak is notifications. Very few people set this up again because you don't have to. This is a more advanced feature. But you can tell your router to notify you if it needs an update.
Right.
Or if it's being attacked. I mean, that's actually kind of important.
That's right. Like it has a DDoS kind of protection.
Precisely,
right?
Precisely. So just make sure that I prefer to do email notifications. It will do SMS. But I don't really want those. I want an email that says, okay, here's the log of what just happened.
Right.
Should I take some actions? And then it has the ability to be, you can set what you want to be notified about. That my external storage is getting full, or that my USB disk has failed, or that it's getting DDoSed.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. And I think you're coming up to the feature that's my favorite, where the automatic updates.
Yes.
Because it was such a pain before when I used to have to download the firmware onto a USB and then plug it in and then update the firmware, which ended up I would never update the firmware on my router, is what would happen. And then I think we've all learned that updating the firmware on your router is pretty important.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Because when somebody hoses your router, they hose your entire network.
Yeah. And the other part about that is hackers are starting to get savvy, and they realize I don't need to go after that big server in the cloud.
Yeah.
I could just own all the routers that are connected to that server in the cloud. And if I own those, then I own the server.
Exactly.
And they realize that you've got all these consumer devices, all the routers that are bought at Best Buy or on Amazon that will never ever update. So whenever there's a vulnerability found, even if they push out a patch, there's a good chance that router doesn't have the latest firmware.
Right.
That is the lowest of hanging fruit.
I think we did talk about that at Black Hat. I forget, was it Evan that we interviewed? Evan Blass?
Dan Gear.
Dan Gear. Yeah, and he was showing us how, like, if you own the perimeter, you don't,
who needs to own the core if you own the edge?
And it was comically easy to own one of those routers that hasn't been patched.
Yeah. And there are tool packages, so you don't even have to know what you're doing. You can just say exploit, and it will enumerate the router. It will see, okay, it's this model running this firmware. Is there an exploit? Yes. Okay, done.
And it's super easy when if you log into the system onto your router on Synology, it shows you a little notification like, hey, here are the things that you should take a look at. So I like going through the options on there.
Indeed. All right, let's set aside the router for just a bit because we want to talk about something else that's important. This was not important when I was in college because we didn't have networks in our dorms.
Was it like pigeons that you had to use to communicate?
We actually did have the rotary dial phones. Oh, actually, hey, fun story. When I was in college, the first time, undergraduate, we had to buy specialized service from, it was not even AT&T, it was Pac Bell at the time.
Wow, okay.
Pacific, it was the old Pacific Bell.
My grandpa worked for Pac Bell.
There we go. And I mean, it was crazy expensive. It was something like $25 for a line that had no minutes on it. And it was a landline. Back then. I mean, that was expensive, but it was the only connectivity you could get in a dorm.
Wow.
And they had a monopoly. There was some sort of agreement that the university had made with the phone company. So the phone company owned all those lines and you couldn't touch them. Someone had to actually come in and install the phone for you. And like when I plugged in my modem, it was a blazing 14.4. I mean, that thing was crazy fast.
14
you don't even know.
megabytes?
14,000 bits per second.
Bits.
14
the
kilobytes.
Individual bits.
Hey, back then that was crazy. I mean, everyone else was using 300 baud modems. I was 14.4. I was like, what?
Everybody was coming over to your dorm to...
I can download the JPEG in under 3 hours, yo.
What was there to do back then? Yeah.
That was basically it. It's like, oh, hey, there was a sporting event. Let me download a frame from the sporting event.
Look,
oh, wow.
You can almost read the names on them.
CompuServe is awesome. But I mean, it was like that.
Oh, okay.
Instead. And nowadays, everyone expects to be wired, but they also expect to have wireless.
Yes. Yeah.
And you need to understand how it actually works.
Okay.
All right.
I do.
So what you want to do is you want to get yourself a couple of tools. The first tool that I would always suggest is Wi-Fi Analyzer.
Just on your phone, yeah.
It's just on my phone. It works really, really well on Android. There are a couple for iPhone. Actually, I think there's a version of Wi-Fi Analyzer as well. If you want to use a Windows PC, it would be something like NetStumbler. If you want to use an OS X computer, it would be something like Kismet. They all do the same thing, which is take the Wi-Fi environment. What is up, what is communicating, and what channels are they communicating on? So if I turn on my Wi-Fi Analyzer, right now I have it set to take a look at the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. So this is what it looks like inside the test right now. Hold on, let me just do this so it rotates. There we go. So this is what it looks like inside of the Eastside Studios. We've got a couple of APs, and of course they're stacked up properly. So we've got them at 1, 6, and 11. Although you'll notice that there's that orange curve right there.
Yeah.
Well,
you can also do vertical.
It just went away. I don't know what it was. But this is what you want to see in the 2.4 gigahertz range. You want to see all of the access points on 1, 6, and 11.
Yeah.
Sometimes
you'll get those guys in between.
Which is ridiculous. Because they think, oh, well, if everyone else is on channel 6 and 11, I'll be in the middle and I get super access. No, what happens is you're actually disrupting both of those bands at the same time.
Right,
which
you
is
just
awesome.
start, you just start interfering. I had like a 2-hour-long conversation with Russell about that when he was setting up the networks, and he's like, yeah, you get all these channels, but there's really only 3.
There's 3. There's 1, 6, and 11. That's the only ones that exist. Any other channel, you are guaranteeing that people will hate you.
Right, right. So stick to those. And I think Wi-Fi Analyzer also will take in all the different networks that there are and recommend which one you should use.
Precisely. The other cool thing about this is just by tapping a little button here, I can switch between 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. And of course, now you see why I like 5 gigahertz, because it is so open compared to 2.4.
Yeah, so here's 2.4 for us, and then there's 5. Yeah.
And basically the only one that's 5 is the Synology router I have under the desk right now. So, yay,
and pro tip for Wi-Fi Analyzer, if you go into the settings.
See, whatever that is.
What is that?
One of that weird SSID.
Oh,
it's
wow, that's
trying
weird.
to be clever.
Yeah, get out of here. It's probably those Broadcom guys next door. But you can hide the ad. And I've wanted to pay for this. I don't think there's like a paid version though.
It is an excellent piece of software. It's probably the best piece of software for mobiles.
This is like the one app I have downloaded on every Android phone I have ever owned.
It's
since
free.
The
Go get it.
HTC Incredible is the oldest smartphone I had.
Oh, by the way, the other thing that you can do is you can use this signal. This is sort of a signal strength meter.
I use that all the time.
When you do find one that's like sitting on channel 7, and normally it's an Apple device because they do auto channel selection, and evidently no one told the engineers at Apple that there are only 3 channels in 2.4 gigahertz.
Yeah.
You can use this to find them. You can like do directional finding until you see, oh, this is where it's strongest, and then you just kind of walk in. If you see an access, what do you call it, Airport Express, that's probably what's causing it.
Well, and I used this for when I was setting up my Xbox on the wireless, which I got sick of, and I just hardwired it after a while. Figuring out which band was the strongest when I walked through, like what room was the weakest, the signal.
Right.
You know, I mean, obviously it's going to be the room farthest, but what happened for me was that the way my apartment's configured, I think like the signal was bouncing off stuff, so it was like actually stronger in one side of the room than it was on the other, and it was probably only about like 6 feet away from each other. So, well, then I just like moved everything to the other wall because I was running like my computer wirelessly there.
And I think that's the important thing to remember, that any tool that gives us visibility into something that we can't actually see, that lets us make better decisions about how we set up our network.
Right, because when I was setting up my apartment, I was limited to a couple of different spots of where I was going to put my router, but because I had Wi-Fi Analyzer, I was able to walk through the house and figure out which side of the house the router would work better on. Because the nice thing about the Synology too is it's got like the mount, so you can put it on a wall, you know, like that. And it turned out that if I put it on one wall versus the other wall, I got better signal throughout the rest of the apartment.
I love it. All right, let's move on to something a bit more hardy. That's free as long as you've got some sort of mobile device.
Yeah.
It will work on pretty much every version of Android and iOS. So again, Wi-Fi Analyzer, it's a tool to get. If you want to spend a bit more money, you can get way more detail than just a simple screen. And both Russell and I use the same tools. We love these. These are the Wi-Fi analyzers from MetaGeek. Mine are really old. I got these like, what, 8 years ago?
Is it just software that's in there?
No, Brian. If you take a look, so the Wi-Fi analyzer actually is a combination of software and hardware. This is a little dongle that will plug in. It's essentially a wireless card, but it's been set up a little bit different with a little different firmware to give you promiscuous mode and allows the software to get a lot more detail. Now, this is nice. You can actually get this for under $200, but this is only going to look at the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum.
Okay.
Which is not so useful because, you know, I like to live in 5, which is why I have this. This is the DBX. And again, this is an older version, but, and I have to make sure I'm not going to show off the registration code. Hold on. There we go. This will do 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. This, we've seen this on the show before. Fantastic device. Russell uses the exact same one. A bit pricier.
You say a bit pricier, and then you make this face, which definitely says, you know, in the $1,000 range.
Actually, yes.
Yeah.
So Wi-Fi analyzer free. That one, the 2.4 gigahertz, you know, $150 to $200.
Okay, okay.
This is $800 to $2,000.
800. That's kind of a big discrepancy.
It depends on what software tools you want to attach to it, because the software actually is a big part. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm going to go ahead and plug it into my little laptop here. It's going to do its quick software installation, and then I'm going to kick off the software, which will allow me to have, it's the same network. Remember, we're talking about the same environment, the Wi-Fi environment, but now I'm looking at it through a much more in-depth tool.
Sophisticated.
It's much more sophisticated tool. There we go. So right now I am looking through.
Ooh, I already like the interface.
There we go. So this is showing me everything, not just the channels, but it is showing me every bit of RF in the spectrum that I'm looking. So right now I'm looking at the 2.4 gigahertz band, because that's the most active. Actually, here's the 5 gigahertz band. It's relatively inactive.
It's quiet.
Yeah, super quiet. And again, this is why I like 5 gigahertz. Look at all that empty space. All of that is spectrum available for me to use. But if I go back to 2.4, it looks like this. And the important thing to remember, the Wi-Fi and analyzer cannot detect this. This doesn't just detect Wi-Fi networks. This will show you everything in that spectrum.
So if you're getting just not even from another wireless network, you're just getting interference from something?
Cordless phones, microwave ovens, or little pieces of gear like baby monitoring units that are just operating in that frequency. And they can, I mean, it looks, you might look at Wi-Fi analyzer and go, there's nothing else here. Why is my wireless network so messed up?
Right.
You turn this on, you go, oh, there's a huge freaking spike where channel 6 should be. It's not Wi-Fi. The other cool thing about this is they actually have these templates that they call them signatures. So you can figure out like what is what. So I can try to match this up with the signal that it's detecting.
Whoa.
And when I get close enough, I'll go, oh, okay, yeah, that's what that is. Like for example, here's what 802.11b and G look like. And so if I can find a curve that matches, like, oh, I don't know, that,
Almost
I'm like,
perfectly.
oh, that's probably 802.11bg.
That's cool. Yeah, I was having the issue where every time someone turned on the microwave in my house, I would lose the internet. Yeah, everything would drop. So I'm wondering what it would look like on that map. It would just be like...
It is kind of fun. I mean, most microwaves are shielded, but I've...
not this one.
I found, we had one in DC that was really, really old.
Yeah.
And so I put this next to it, and I had like 30 seconds, hit start, and suddenly like this entire screen
light up.
Out.
Yeah. It's like if you ever wanted a Wi-Fi jammer, it's just get like
an old microwave. Break the door on an old microwave.
Break the door,
and then walk away because you're gonna die. You're cooking yourself.
No, well, isn't it very directional, like in a microwave?
It's not, no, I mean,
No?
it's not
Is
super
it?
direct, but I mean also, it gets absorbed by the air. So you walk a couple of feet away and you're fine.
Okay. Is it okay to like put your face up against it and look in?
No.
No, that's bad?
Don't do that.
Oh, because when you put peeps in the microwave?
Oh, no, but you mean behind a door.
Yeah, behind the door.
That's fine.
Okay.
That door is gonna absorb all the radiation.
Even though like it's...
You should do that, Brian.
It kills my Wi-Fi network, but my eyeballs start to feel warm.
My eyeballs are all Wi-Fi.
I can't see.
All right, so we've been messing around with this. Let me show you a real-world example of how you could use a sophisticated tool like the Wi-Spy DBX to track down little bits of interference. I'm here at the MetaGeek booth with Trent Cutler, and he's going to help us track down a little phenomenon. Trent, exactly what are we looking at right now?
Well, right now, we've got an odd spike in the spectrum near Wi-Fi channel 11, and we are curious what it was, so we're going to use the new feature that we've implemented that tracks down devices. So we call it Device Finder.
And that's in cooperation with your directional antenna?
Correct. So as you move it around, it's like a flashlight, so you can find the source of interference.
So ground rules are this laptop, that Wi-Spy, this antenna, we're going to find something on the show floor that seems to be buzzing the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum.
So we notice an odd peak of interference in the spectrum, and so what we need to do is we need to zoom in just to that source so we can go into device finder mode with the directional antenna and track it down. So we're looking at this amplitude level right here, so we're going to walk around and find it. So I saw an increase of activity, so I'm going to head this way. This view is also showing me increase of amplitude right here, so I can also watch this to see if I'm aiming the right way or not. So if I aim away from the source, you can see it changes colors according to the signal strength. We're getting closer. As you can see, we've gotten closer to the source. So we're gonna go further this way. So I'm facing the opposite way, and we've had a decrease. So I'm gonna turn around. If you notice these red spikes in the spectral view and the increase of activity in the device finder mode, I'm very, very close. Crashing Wi-Fi channel 11.
Hey, Xbox, we have a winner. This is amazing. Okay.
We found the source of interference for Wi-Fi channel 11 at Interop with MetaGeek's Channelizer Pro and Device Finder.
That was actually a lot of fun.
Those damn robots.
He showed us like the nice, clean, cutesy version, but we actually did use that tool to track down 3 kids who were trying to de-auth the Wi-Fi network.
Nice try, kids.
Yeah, we're like, let's walk up to them. Hey guys, how you doing
there?
How you doing? So you remember the terms of service that you signed when you came into the show?
Yeah,
you're violating those right now. Oops. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to call your mom.
She's coming in the van right now. Get ready to leave.
Oh, but I mean, again, I know that's expensive. What I would suggest is if you can't afford it, drop by eBay. These do pop up every once in a while, especially since there's a new version. If you can find the old version of the MetaGeek Wi-Spy DBX, it doesn't look the same, but it's basically the same hardware, and you get an older version of the software. But Channelizer Pro is still fantastic. I mean, that's what I'm using.
Yeah.
It's a good tool to have.
Yeah, it looks like fun. I like the interface on it.
It's my break in case of emergency type thing.
Yeah, right. You keep it behind glass kind of thing.
I keep it tight.
Keep it right.
Yeah, that's how it works. Folks, before we go, because it is Halloween, I wanted to do a quick update. Last week, Patrick Delahanty and we did a little something.
Right.
We put together some fun little segments for people who might want to make their own costumes.
Patrick's a big props guy. He's
really
a big costume guy. He does good stuff.
And one of the things that he has is he's got a great costume for him as the 10th Doctor.
The Doctor Who?
The Dr. Tennant Doctor. Yeah, Doctor Who. And he made this Doctor Detector. It's not completely done. I have to tape some of the stuff up. But hey, Jank is my middle name.
Right.
But if you remember, he was using Christmas lights.
I saw that. Yeah, it did not light up very well.
I mean, they worked. You saw the intent, but I mean, it didn't look like the actual prop from the show.
Right.
So what we did was we replaced his Christmas lights with 50/50 SMD, cool white lights.
Yeah.
And this is what it looks like now. So if I plug it in now. There we go.
Whoa, that's a lot brighter.
Yeah, way brighter. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to add a bubbler into this, so it's going to have that same bubbling effect that you actually had from the Doctor Who series.
I like that idea. This is not too far off from your Aqua Vase project.
It really isn't. It's the same kind. You know, it's funny. We do all these really interesting projects on Know How, but it always comes back to things that are shiny, blinky, and bright.
Yep, everything that lights up is our favorite.
Yeah. Well, folks, we know that this has been a lot of information, and it's Halloween, so you should all get out there and
go have some candy.
Get diabetes.
Yeah, unless you have type 1 diabetes, don't eat candy.
Don't do that. We want to make it easy for you to get all the links for the show. So if you want to check out any of the products that we thought you should take back to school, or if you want to look at the instructions for how you use those tools, you need to go to our show page. And Brian, where do they find that?
twit.tv/KH. And not only are the show notes notes there, but you'll find past episodes, so you'll definitely want to check those out. And download and subscribe while you're there.
There you go. And don't forget that we also have a really big presence on Google+. In fact, it's one of our favorite places. Over 10,000 Kitas, that's know-it-alls, who are in all stages of their maker journey. So if you're advanced, please come in and help the people who are new to this. If you're new to this, please come in and ask questions. And if you're somewhere in between, post videos and pictures of your projects. We love to see what you're doing.
Right. But if you want to, contact us more directly or see what we're doing when we're not lighting up hands in jars, you'll want to follow us on Twitter. I'm at cranky_hippo.
And you're going to find me at PadreSJ. And you're also going to find our birthday boy.
Yeah, if you want to wish him a happy birthday.
Or
you're going to have to go
whatever
to...
it might be.
I thought he was going to mute me.
Yeah, I see his hand on the switch. We're not going to mention his Twitter address because he gets very shy. ANELF3. NL3.
But he is a Twin Peaks fan, so we all dressed up today for that.
Until next time, I am Father Robert Valliser.
And I'm Brian Burnett.
And now that you know how,
go build it? Go software go Wi-Fi it? What did we talk about? Just end it.